What's going on, everybody? I'm Tom.
I'm Pat.
And I'm Zach.
We're best friends, and you're listening to the Reminiscent Podcast. They say you can't choose your family. Well, you also can't choose which era of music you grew up in. This is a weekly show where we discuss our favorite bands from adolescence and how they continue to shape our lives today. Each week, we'll head back to the early 2000s and take a closer look at the cards we were dealt. We are back for episode...
More tunes!
Classic callback to episode 101. This is 102, however, and we are talking about our taste, our phases, our styles of music that we've appreciated over time, what started them, how they've changed, any that we regret. I know I definitely regret quite a few coming out of 2007, as Pat likes to bring up. Crabcore. And we're just going to get into it. Should we start off with like the first? Well, how are you guys doing today? How are you feeling? How's everything shaking?
It's good, but I don't want to just brush over the fact that you were in Huntsville this past week. I feel like there's stories to tell.
Oh, yes. Just the little thinker boy at a big Thinkercon. Yeah, there was a YouTube, like an educational YouTuber convention, and on the last day they invited fans to come in and have dinner under like a Saturn V rocket or something, and I met the people that got me into podcasting, and it was one of the most magical weekends ever.
So what was it? What drew you there? And like, what was like the moment you knew you had made the right call to go? Like, what did you hope to get from it? And then what happened? Like you flew down there?
Yeah, so first of all, it was called Thinkercon, and we're producing a novel called The Thinker Boys. So immediately I thought, this is a business expense, market research, let's just go do it. The tickets were kind of a lot of money, and the flights were ungodly on the weekend, so I ended up going down Thursday morning in order to make airfare more bearable, and I ended up getting this like really old Airbnb in like historic downtown. And when you think of Alabama, or for me anyway, I think of their state flag and what it probably represents for the rest of the state. Huntsville is lit as man. There was an arcade bar downtown, several awesome coffee shops that were like better than anything I've had in Denver. And there was an axe throwing range. And there was a meetup from one of the podcasts called No Dumb Questions. 40 of us went to the arcade bar and then axe throwing. And then we woke up super early to go to Cathedral Caverns, which is a state park. It's one of the largest caves, commercial caves in the country, and it was mind-blowing. Went out to lunch with a bunch of the people there and went to this place called Misplaced Luggage or Lost Luggage or something. It was like when people lose their luggage after 90 days, if the airport can't return it to them, they pay them out, and then whatever isn't claimed they send to this place, and it's essentially like a thrift store of like people's lost shit. And it just so happened that one of the people in our group, his parents owned the store, and like he had no idea we were going there. And it was just, I met a lot of really, really awesome people. And I met Brady Haran and CGP Grey, the hosts of Hello Internet. I proposed wearing one of their t-shirts and tweeted it at them. They talked about it on the show, and they kind of like dared me to wear it to my wedding, and I did. And I tweeted at the show again. They talked about it again. So I like cut one of the conversations onto vinyl, and I brought it there for them to autograph the record. And there was like a short line to meet them, and both of them like knew who I was when I got to them. And like, you know, one of them like asked, like, can I take a picture with you? It was like, I'm here to take a picture with you. What are you talking about? You know? And it was just like meeting my heroes and hearing their voices as we looked into each other's eyes was surreal. And again, just met a lot of really cool people. Met a lot of Tims, which are listeners of Hello Internet. And I don't know if you've seen the video of that Swedish guy that made that machine that he hand cranks and it drops marbles down, and it was like this insane engineering feat. Talked to him for like a half an hour or so, just like a really nice down to earth dude. Didn't even know who he was at first, and just a lot of like really smart people. I was definitely the dumbest person in the room. Everyone was like systems engineers. One guy like controlled coordinates on the ISS or some shit. And everyone was so smart, all engineers and stuff like that. And I felt really out of place, but had a lot of fun. And I'm very motivated to do a lot of things right now. So yeah, it was awesome. Thank you for letting me talk about that.
You know who said you should always be the dumbest person in the room? Marilyn Monroe.
Oh, she said
I saw that on an internet photo.
Oh, that's
Direct
gotta
quote.
be true.
I'm pretty sure that whoever sourced it was spot on with that one. It might have also been Abraham Lincoln. I forget which. No, that's awesome. I've never been to Alabama myself, but between the video games and the coffee, and the space things and the hiking, it sounds like your dream weekend. That sounds awesome.
Well, yeah, the conference was at the U.S. Space and Rocket Center, and they had like full-size rockets and space shuttles with the SRBs attached to it, like models of it, but it was absolutely incredible. And they had fireworks afterwards, and like the 40 people that we went to the caverns with, we hung out all day and like talked about our favorite shows, and it was just so much fun. It was so much fun.
Well, all right.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
So with that, do we go into this week's episode of our phases through the years?
I'd love to. I think for people who are just joining us or just started listening to us recently, sometimes we do episodes about specific bands. Last week we did a real fun one about it was kind of a draft, but we drafted songs specifically from the year 2000 to make our own personal mixtapes. I lost by a lot in last week's draft, but it was fun. Anyway, this is going to be more of a conversational one, but if you want to check out some of the past episodes we've done, I think we did Paramore. Episode 100 was fun. We did Avril Lavigne. I think it was episode 95 or so, but my personal favorite, go back and listen to the My Chemical Romance episode for the music video specifically of I'm Not Okay. But usually, sometimes we have a narrow, sharp focus, but today we're just going to talk a little bit about, like Tom said, our musical tastes and how they've changed through the years. And you had an interesting start, Tom. Your first favorite song. I guess no one's really asked me that. Zach, I was very curious, or both of you really, about what your answers might be.
Before we launch into that, I want to say that not having Sandstorm by Darude on one of our lists from the year 2000 is a fucking crime.
Apologies to everyone.
So
we failed you.
So what's everyone's first favorite song that you can remember? I'm asking the audience as well.
Okay, I'll go first. I know it.
Give it to me.
It's Same Thing Happened to Me, and it's a John Prine song. Imagine that.
Of course, dude. Of course.
Very on brand.
Right.
So it's the first song like I ever really knew, and I have known it since I was probably in second or third grade, and my grandpa used to sing these songs to me and my siblings, so we knew all the words, and we'd like sing it on the school bus, and people would ask, "What are you singing?" I'd say, "I don't know." I would just know the words. I'm like, "What's the name of that song?" It's like, "I don't know. Who sings it? I don't know." It was just some of the I just didn't know, and then I later figured out that it was John Prine.
And then you kept listening to Prine, you're saying? You're a fan of his?
Yeah, you could say that.
You followed his work after that point?
Yes, I think I might have, checked in once in a while.
It's the phase that never ends.
I love that. Mine is one that is not something I hold dear at all anymore, but it's Tush by ZZTop. I was in like fourth grade. Jay used to throw on classic rock radio on the way to walk our dog Nala. Shout out to Nala, greatest dog ever. And I think I was saying touch, so he let it fly. And then I'm pretty sure my mom probably gave him the stink eyes when we got home because I memorized all the words to the song Tush as a very young child. I had no idea what the lyrics meant or what they were implying in any way. I still like the song, but it takes on a hugely different meaning. I maybe 2 years ago found out they were talking about butts. I just like very innocently that, and there was like any Queen song that came on the radio I liked a lot.
Oh, yeah.
We Will Rock You when it would go into We Are the Champions on the radio and stuff.
Wait, can I read the lyrics from Tush?
I would love that, actually. I think that'd be an excellent exercise. Granted, in my brain, they were like, oh yeah, looking for some touch, which actually is still kind of sexual. Like it doesn't help either way. But it was innocent enough, I guess, for Mary to greenlight us to continue listening to the radio. She was pretty hardcore back then, so I'm surprised you didn't shut that shit down.
I'll read the third verse or whatever.
Of course.
Take me back, way back home, not by myself, not alone. I ain't asking for much. I said, Lord, take me downtown. I'm just looking for some tush.
Poets ahead of their time, to be sure. Those bearded sages.
That's amazing. I love that. I remember just loving whenever I Saw the Sign by Ace of Base came on.
Oh, yeah.
And that song came out when I was 1 year old. So, I mean, I feel like my life started at 4 years old, like a dream where you just like start in the middle of something. And I remember my mom's like white Buick, which my stepbrother told me Buicks were for poor people. And I felt so bad about that car for years. As a 4-year-old, self-conscious of their wealth. And like I saw the sign coming on and, you know, just not knowing anything about anything, but just like loving the melody. And that's my absolute first, but like for no real reason. But the intro of last week, I mentioned like hovering over your boombox, like ready to hit record on the cassette tape. I remember being that hardcore about the song No Diggity, which was like, God, 90. I would have been like 7 years old. We were on that house in 32nd Street, and my sister and I like waiting days to catch that song with our hand hovering over the record button to get it because we wanted to listen to it all the time. So I think like as a coherent young child, No Diggity would have to be like my favorite first favorite song.
That's a good first favorite song.
It's good. I had some
real good one.
I had some style as a 7-year-old.
Yeah. I'm envisioning you from the anecdote from a couple episodes ago where you talked about listening to the Baha Men in front of like your older sister's friends walking by. I'm just picturing you always in a tank top staring at like the waves of the PlayStation Play thing. Like that's so much cooler than me in the woods singing the wrong words to ZZTop. Like, at least you were recording things and being mindful about what you were listening to.
Jesus. So yeah, I don't know. I associate that song with just like my sister's room with the weird pink walls, very dark, lots of dark brown wood on the walls. I like see brown when I hear that song. It's weird, but I love it to this day.
Where'd it go from there?
Well, I mean, what was the first phase? So like when you really like started caring about music as your own person, not just, I guess we still kind of were being fed whatever was just on the radio, but when you felt like you developed a style or a genre that you connected to, like when was that and how did it come about? Who presented it to you? How long did it last? What were the bands or songs involved? That's kind of the meat of this episode.
I think my older cousin Matt gave me the Blue Album on one trip down to Johnstown, Pennsylvania. And that,
which is Weezer, right?
Yeah. And that probably explains a lot, I guess. But it shifted from just only guessing classic rock radio songs in the car with my dad to, you know, the first experience of sitting down with a Walkman and going from the first track to the last track and then deciding which ones you like the best and then maybe replaying one of them over and over for a few of the days that you have it. And so yeah, it became Weezer right away. Maybe because it was just the first CD that was ever handed to me. I know at some point in there, Katie, my oldest sister, slipped me a burnt copy of Enema of the State. And then she gave me this big binder for Christmas full of burnt CDs. That might have been in 7th grade though, but I think it was just older relatives giving me CDs when they were done with them, kind of. But the first one is definitely Weezer Blue, and they're still my favorite band today by a long shot. I
mean, was it just Weezer, or were there like other bands in the genre that were associated with them, or it was just like nothing?
No, I wasn't cool enough to be like, and then I brushed up on grunge. And like I wasn't like, well, I think there's notes of Nirvana's Nevermind in this, but I think they made it their own right around, you know, if you listen only in dreams, especially the fourth time you listen, you know, so I wasn't like was like, Chris Cornell's voice, but in Pearl Jam, I think there's a lot going on vocally, but then after that, the people that tried to replicate that sound, even into the early 2000s, didn't quite hit the mark. That wasn't me. It was just like, man, Buddy Holly is a cool song. And then I listened to Blink-182 because of the swear words. Like, it was not sophisticated at all. Like, there was no analyzing genres or anything. It was just like, cool, thanks for the free stuff, guys. Like, I don't have anything to do because I'm a child, so I'm going to listen to these.
But like looking back, what do you think it was that captivated you?
Oh goodness,
it was just different than anything you've heard before. Like
pretty much, I don't know.
As your first departure from top 40,
it was the first time. So like, grunge and that style of rock is different than classic rock radio. So it was definitely like harder. So I was like, ooh, what?
Yeah.
And then, but with Weezer specifically, I guess it's the nerdy lyrics, whatever makes Weezer, right? It was just kind of like, it was interesting to hear the words he was saying, and then the solos and the rocking were pleasant, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, man, I just fucking love Weezer. I don't know, I've never tried to explain it out loud before, so I feel like an absolute fool trying to do so now, but
that's what's fun.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll say this. Everything that makes Weezer just made total sense to my brain. The way his voice sounded, the way the lyrics, what the words to the lyrics are, the riffs, the solo, it just was like, yeah, dude, this is it for sure.
Do you think that, so your sister's the one who gave it to you, right?
No, my cousin Matt. And then my sister gave me Enema of the State maybe a couple years later.
Did you look up to your cousin Matt?
The other CD he gave me was like a band he managed. He was like the high school manager of this band that was called the Ska-Kaholics. And it was like some small town Pennsylvania ska band that Joe McShane still listens to. Actually, he has a copy of that CD. He came across it because we all got into ska and techno for a little while there. As if you listen to last week's episode, and Zach's love and his brother's love of ska is big in our neighborhood. But I didn't listen to that one as much. But they were a little older than me, so really it was just like, I don't know if out of pity, just like I just was a younger relative, and it was the literal least they could do. I mean, they might have been cleaning out their room that day. I don't even know.
Yeah, I was just wondering if it was like you look up to them, so the music that they gave to you felt like it was coming from like this higher position, like, you know what I mean? Like you're more willing to give something a chance if like someone you respect gives it to you, or like if there was any element of like, well, I want to like it because I want them to know that I like it and be cool like them because they're older. But it sounds like that wasn't the case. That you just really
we used to go down to Johnstown a lot. There was just a lot of car time to fill, I guess. So this was before smartphones and everything. So it's like something had to pass 4 hours, on state highways back to
sure, back
to Erie. So it was going to be blue, 17 times through, or what, you know what I mean? Just like it was going to be something. So I was glad to have new media. It was either that or Etch-a-Sketching or whatever Mary had at the time.
I think I'm really bad at remembering timelines. Stuff gets jumbled. I remember details, but not the order of events. But I think the first one was like between 5th and 6th grade. And this was, it was on the radio, but Simple Plan came out with no pads, no helmets, just balls. And that was like my very first intro into pop rock, but like it opened the door for pop punk, My sister actually gave me the CD, and I remember we were just enthralled by it because there were like girls with garters on the bed and they're all looking like sexy and surprised and whatnot. But, I heard the first song, I'd Do Anything, long before, or a few years before I even knew who Mark Hoppus was. Didn't know he had a cameo on the album or whatever, but they were like the intro to what became pop punk. And I remember the first day of 6th grade, the teacher asking what our favorite songs were. And I went to Catholic school and I said, God Must Hate Me, because it was inarguably the best song on the album. And I think that just launched my shitty career into the age of the nuns at St. James. Not to mention at recess that day, I kicked a home run in kickball and it hit my teacher in the head. Mm-hmm. So I was off to it sounds like a bad, comedy, but like off to a very bad start. But yeah, Simple Plan kind of like cracked the door open, and then Blink just blew the fucking thing off the hinges when I found out about Enema of the State, which would have been a year later. But I think
real quick, I'm picturing the kid from The Omen playing kickball at St. Luke's. Just like the Antichrist running around. Just like, nice try, nuns. Religion's not going to work on me. I like Simple Plan. Just... But I remember they used to rag on you super hard just because you wouldn't cut your hair and stuff, right?
Yeah, and that was written into the book, Ron Carnage.
Yeah, it was. Do you feel like you took on songs that to you felt or seemed rebellious because they were trying to pigeonhole you because you had hair that was a little longer? Or like, do you felt you were pigeonholed, or you felt you were going to fall into that one way or another? Like, kind of not alternative, but
right.
What am I trying to say, Zach? Like, you've not seen... But into music even? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but do you feel you fell onto a certain path, or you think you were going to anyway, or they forced you there?
I mean, I think I went into that whole thing with the teachers with good intentions, but somehow I just became their target. And when they tried to paint me as like this bad kid, I just became that because they were going to treat me like it anyway. So why try? So then I like did things to piss them off, you know? I don't know if the music had anything to do with that, but I will say, in between Simple Plan and Blink, there was 8 months where I listened to nothing but Linkin Park, and that was like 7th grade. And I think that was when things got bad with like my stepdad, and things were getting really bad at school with the teachers, and it was like just a horrible depression, and I fucking hated my life. Like, I would hide in my room to not have to go downstairs to see my stepdad, like steal groceries when my mom came back from shopping so I wouldn't have to go downstairs, would like pee in bottles to not have to go downstairs. And again, I talked about this on the last episode with my pick from Linkin Park. Like, hearing someone talk about pain that I was experiencing was just like, oh, I'm not alone, you know? And like, it was deep, man. I was like in a theater, and at the time, I think I mentioned this before too, I was in Wind in the Willows, and like the Weasels were like the protagonists, and they kind of dressed goth. So I was like putting eyeliner on and like painting my nails black, which I said was for the show, but I just like wanted to do it just to like show my pain, you know? And Linkin Park, I mean, I don't know if they made it worse just by like pouring myself into these horribly sad lyrics, but that was like a big thing. Like, I was like the Linkin Park guy, you know, like, so that's like 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. Simple Plan, then Linkin Park, and then Blink-182 at the same time as Green Day. Really fell into those. I was out of the house with my stepdad. Everything was great. You know, again, listen to Blink-182 because of swearing, and I thought it was so edgy, and I was like still kind of pissed off about everything. And that's kind of when everything changed with Blink, as I said ad nauseum on this show. So yeah, those are my biggest 3 right out of the gate there.
Zach, where'd you go from Prine?
I think as I'm reviewing the artists that I have written down on my list, it seems that I gravitated towards softer songs on harder albums, or just softer songs in general. And
oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And in many cases it involved an acoustic guitar because I could play along to it. So I was able to really blast music in the basement at my house and play along to it with an electric guitar and an amp and try out singing. I remember trying to learn to sing Reckless Abandon and just like playing along to the CD and guitar and not having a mic, but just like screaming the lyrics and trying to learn how to sing at like that higher register with a little more force behind my voice, kind of like Tom DeLonge did for that song. And my brother just screaming down, "You suck!" I'm like, "Shut up! I'm working on it. Better than you." But so that would be the opposite of what I described. That was a harder song, but most of the favorite artists or favorite songs or transitional music was with what I could play along to, and it was definitely mood generated, and it followed a mood. Followed some growing up things. Like on this list here, like I've got Big D and the Kids Table. I didn't really learn any of that music, but it was a little more positive, and I think I needed or had too much positivity, and it was just like, okay, I'm jamming with this. This is really fun. And I went back to and from ska. Like I would have moments like a month or two of like, wow, I forgot about Big D. Or Less Than Jake, or a little bit of Sublime. I forgot about all that stuff, and I'd get a fix, and then I just move on.
Was there a moment where you like knew you were getting something from it, or like it became clear that you were music was your new thing, or did it start with you playing and things you could play, or was there a song or a record or a song that you learned but you're like, this is totally where I want to be headspace wise, listening to this exact thing, like this, they're talking about me? Was there like a moment when music became something else for you? And Tom, this question goes for you too, kind of.
Well, I think Prine did it, and it's hard to draw a parallel between 1970s John Prine delivering mail in Chicago and the parallel being a 13-year-old boy in 2003. Like, he had clearly a different life than I did, but somehow his lyrics are so clever, and you go back in time and you listen to them as a 13-year-old, and I had no idea what he was talking about half the time. But as I listen to his old stuff and even his new stuff now, I get this whole new picture. And his music was always easy to play, and his songs were, fairly easy to play. Lyrics were easy to understand and sing them, not necessarily understand them, but I knew that music changed for me, and it became me when I could take a guitar and take a song and do it all by myself. Because, half of his songs and some of his albums were just him on a guitar. And I would listen to it, learn it, play it. I'm like, holy shit, I can do that. Now I don't even have to press play. I can spend several hours just doing this, just me, and getting better, or writing songs. And I think that's where writing songs came out, because I could do it. I didn't need any help from a speaker or anything. So then, I mean, that grew. Like Tom, I mentioned before that, like, you brought me into pop punk, and I got my Blink Fix and Taking Back Sunday and Brand New and all that stuff from you. And I think I gravitated a little more towards the softer jams on Taking Back Sunday albums, and because there were some harmonics and easy, I don't know, power chords on electric guitar. And I was playing a lot of electric guitar at that time and fuzzing around with tones. Did that ever become me? Maybe a little bit. There was some angstiness, definitely angstiness, and songwriting was expressive of that.
Yeah, totally. I think for me as well, like, hearing Simple Plan's like really sad, angsty, I'm just a kid type songs, and then with Linkin Park's, like, everything up to that point was so bubbly and happy, and like I wasn't. So to hear something that was like, oh, this isn't what other people are listening to. I mean, obviously Linkin Park and Simple Plan are wildly successful bands, but like, it wasn't the mainstream top 40 stuff for the most part. And feeling like this is something different than other people are experiencing, that I see them experiencing. It felt like the songs were written just for me. And that's when I really like understood the power of music and how they can affect someone, if that answers your question.
Yeah. I was just looking at the show notes and realized we have so much more to get to. Tom, it looks like you wrote down a good amount of like, and then high school just kind of came, and then all of a sudden there was dozens of bands that we had to just rip through. We were in a musical group. There was different stuff happening kind of on a seasonal basis, it seemed like, in terms of all of a sudden there were breakdowns and everything and crap like that. And the hair was getting more straight and the riffs were getting less hard. They were getting poppier, maybe. I don't know. I feel like it went from Enema of the State to Shake It by Metro Station in like a matter of 4.5 years. And that was just like such a weird time to go through puberty. It was like to descend into whatever that was. I don't know. Like Chester in Linkin Park, what they were doing, like, say what you want, but that was like, Chester obviously is a legend. But like Forever the Sickest Kid's not quite as legendary, right? So like, I think this is the crux of what this show is those 4 years. You know what I mean? We physically grew in this next chapter, and I'm anxious to hear it because you look like you had some good notes, Tom, on this particular phase.
Yeah, I mean, I've gone through like a ton of, and it's not even like it was phases. It was just like new beginnings of stuff. I remember being in marching band freshman year, and Alex Burtis, who we so lovingly called Chode, was on the band bus with his big boom box that he had a big piece of like gaffing tape that said Billy. The boombox's name was Billy, and he would play 44 caliber Love Letter by Alexisonfire for hours at a time.
Which, if you played it for an hour, you'd only run through it 3 or 4 times because that song is long as hell.
And I remember like kind of standing up to talk over to the person in the seat in front of me and just being like, this is the I used to remember what I said because I like feel like I thought it out, but I was like, this is kind of that makes me hate music, which, you know, doesn't make sense because I never fucking hated music, but it was just like I hated it. But he played it every single game in every single competition, which is every Friday and Saturday night. And after weeks and weeks and weeks of hearing it, and I think Zach, we kind of talked about this last week with people being like, oh, it's all like the same, or it was with Paramore, like, oh, you sound just like Paramore, because people don't hear the small subtle details that differentiate it from the rest. And I started to hear those in that song, and I remember the part where he's like he's like, this is a 44 caliber level under shape for my heart. You know? It's just like
Pete Wentz style into the mic, just like, I'm gonna write some poetry on you right now and then we'll rock again, I promise.
And I just remember being like, I don't think I've ever heard anything like that in music before.
Quick aside, I think if we look at what happened from the Forever the Sickest Kids crap to Mumford & Sons, I think the dude, the lead singer of Alexisonfire, might be the perfect case study for like the let's just chill out for a bit, because he went on to do City in Color. Like, I think that might be the actual like, oh, we've gotten here. We know. We're sorry. We're all very sorry. But and then it's just like, we're going to go unplug to everything for the next like 7 fucking years. And then it's going to get poppy after that. But his actual trajectory kind of defines the whole thing, which I think is interesting. He's got a great voice. Anyway,
no, that's a great point.
I interrupted you.
No, it's great. Dallas Green is amazing. But I think hearing that part and then being like, oh, that was interesting, I didn't hate that. Is there anything else I can get out of this song? And then I started to love the song. And then I started to love Alexisonfire. And I'm really bad with like, if I find one band, I kind of just stick to it. There's people who are like, I found this band, I want to find 10 other that sounds like them. Like, if I go to a restaurant and I pick something I like, I get the same thing every time. Like, I don't want to be disappointed. I want to just like stick with the things I know that I like. And when I started hanging out with Cameron Bazorek heavily sophomore year of high school, he introduced me to Norma Jean and Inhale Exhale and Under Oath, actually. And it's interesting. I usually find bands in threes, and they are the ones who, with the help of Alexisonfire, again, cracking the door, allowing me to be open-minded to it. When I heard Norma Jean and Inhale Exhale, pretty different for their genre, and especially Under Oath, again, blew the door off the hinges, just being
what were those chords Norma Jean used to play? Was there a name for them?
They were just diminished chords, okay. Or they were tritones. Yeah.
Were they tritones? Isn't the tritone like the Ozzy Osbourne Black Sabbath, the first song, first album?
It's perfectly symmetrical between both sides of an octave, so it's right in the middle. It's like 4.5 steps up, or would it be 7? I forget my music theory right now.
For the layman out there, could you describe those noises?
God! So it's like, if you're looking at it mathematically, if you're looking at it mathematically, it would be the audible version of like a non-repeating number. Like, it just never goes into it evenly. So when you hear it, it's just like, oh, that's bad. You know, like that, those two notes should not go together.
Oh, that's bad.
Which I think, you know, that's like what it is. It's like two tones that are not divisible by each other. So they counteract with each other, and metal bands use that to define their genre. And I started to love it. It's like super grimy. And when you get into more stuff like the Chariot, where they start using feedback as like a third guitarist, I really got into from those two bands, with Alexisonfire being the catalyst. And I still listen to heavy music like that. And
another aside, could Chiodos be famous today?
Famous today? No.
Like, did it have to be that specific of an era where all this was happening? For it just happened so fast, and all of a sudden, because they were hot for like 2 months. They were like,
they were hot for like 3 years.
They were pretty hot. Yeah.
When I say hot, I mean like they made it into like basketball dudes at practice had a Chiodos song into their like mix in with the hip hop.
Okay.
Like they were just a thing and everyone just like accepted it. I don't know.
I think they were a product of the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that they have made songs that would fare well today, but especially with All's Well That Ends Well, that was a product of 2006 or 2007 or whatever.
Yeah.
But Bone Palace Ballet was a masterpiece, as I would say, similarly to Black Parade.
Bone Palace Ballet is the best name for anything. I should have named my dog Bump House Ballet.
But yeah, so anyway, that gets me into hardcore music.
I think at this point, Brand New had hit. We all like Taking Back Sunday and Brand New, right?
Yeah.
Is that a collective nod?
Yes.
Yeah, I didn't even mention them because I guess I'm talking about the beginning of new eras for me. But yeah, Brand New and Taking Back Sunday ruled all of high school for all four of us.
I think so.
Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Like all 4 years.
For me, I think in the timeline, it's just more people offering up suggestions, right? So at first it was literally just my dad turning the car on, and then it was my sister and my cousin giving me CDs they were done with. And then in high school, it was this like rush of Blood to the Head or whatever, right? It was just like, everyone's like, hey, have you heard this? Have you heard this? It's like, I've never really thought about it before. Like, I guess I'll give it a shot, you know?
Well, I mean, that was a product of digital distribution, though. You didn't have to go through the effort and spend money to like give someone a CD. Everyone had suggestions because all of a sudden the entire world opened up when was put on the internet for free.
You didn't have to be in the car either. Cameron could just walk up to you in the hallway and stick one of his earbuds in your ear and be like, dude, this Foo Fighters song is crazy.
Right.
Or James McCallum's older brother could be listening in his room to the song The Shooting Star That Destroyed Us All by the Static Lullaby. And you'll be like, this took a turn. This took a drastic turn from how the song started. And,
cannot wait until the year draft for that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. 2003.
Spoiler alert.
Look out for the 2003. Yeah, The Shooting Star That Destroyed Us All.
2003 is going to be a big year.
Contested.
I've got my number one is
dude. It gets weird. I was looking at the songs, and right around 2003, like it takes a fucking turn.
Well, it's going to get way harder with every year that goes on too. And also, I posted the episode to Reddit, and someone's like, "If you're really pop punk, you would have started with 2001." It was like, dude, whatever.
Just hold on to your butts. That's where we're heading next. So. Anyway,
so where are you guys out here? Sophomore, junior year of high school?
In your mom's basement, listening to the same stuff you are, pretty much.
I thought that was gonna take a different turn somewhere.
Oh no!
At your mom's place,
like
with you,
totally crude
listening
mom
to music
joke in the middle of like friends hanging out. Like, so where are you here? Something a bit? No. Anyway, yeah, high school was pretty much the same story as you guys, but probably less hardcore, I guess. Probably a little poppier, more Killers. More Postal Service. That Postal Service record hit me like a ton of bricks to the fucking face. I was like, I didn't even know people felt this way about anything. And I was like, oh, my God.
I hated it when it first came out.
There's something about
that album.
There was that program called Fruity Loops, and people were making beats at their house, so everyone thought they could do that. But obviously, Ben Gibbard's not anybody, right?
And also not on Fruity Loops.
Right. So she's like, oh, did you hear this thing? It was like the first record that you wouldn't have known. It's like, it felt like a secret you had. You're just like, oh, shit, you know. But, you know, them and the Killers became one of my favorite bands pretty quickly. I think, unfortunately, I didn't get into a lot of those stuff until college, really. It was mostly pop punk with you guys. We were just hanging out all the time. Like, Jimmy Eat World had a bunch of good stuff in that era. But, like, Futures wasn't even on I didn't even hear about it until like tragically late. And, you know, I still haven't even really dug into it stuff. So not enough. So I'm always, the moral of the story is it's very similar to yours. And I didn't even get into half the stuff anyway that I should have been getting into at the time.
Yeah. I was a little hesitant too, to branch out like a lot. I know I had a few bands that I would listen to on repeat, and just devour their stuff. And then go on a break and then just start it over again. And then maybe go out into the world and pick out something new, but nothing. It wasn't a plague of locusts just consuming everything. I just didn't do it. I didn't have the capacity for it.
I definitely like getting one album I loved a lot and then just trying to ruin it for myself. You know what I mean? Just like, okay, this is the album I'm going to listen to for the next until
years.
I don't anymore. Yeah, exactly. So
I think the only way I was able to ruin an album for myself is if I didn't listen to it in order. Like if I just put it on shuffle, I just could never finish it.
No, dude. Never.
No, I'm not that type of person.
Same, dude. I'm so glad. I'm an album listener. I always start at the beginning. Can never start halfway through.
I like to hear how they stack the songs, because there's a certain tone and feel that I think of, like they're welcoming you to the album, and
Yeah, there's an art there for sure.
I'm gonna try to walk us to college here through the albums that I was listening to and liked from front to back, right? So junior high, I'm gonna say it was Young and the Hopeless, Good Charlotte.
Oh, yes.
Front to back, huge. And then Give Up, Postal Service was like, things are gonna change for you forever. Welcome to the world of sad people. And then probably Take Next Sunday Brand New record while the three of us were hanging out until we graduated. And then it was like, into college, it was like Vampire Weekend record dropped, that Kid Cudi record dropped, Man on the Moon. And things just kind of like opened up from there, I guess. The floodgates opened. I think the folk stuff started to happen with that Mumford & Sons record. And then you start to listen to more different things when you're in college and things like that, going to parties and stuff. I would say it didn't branch out from, it was like only Weezer and the stuff you guys liked until I went to Athens, I think probably.
Yeah. What about you, Zach?
Going into college.
Or what was your high school arc even? Yeah.
Well, I think I'm right there with you, Pat, and Tom with the Taking Back Sunday Brand New. But I'd like to add Angels and Airwaves. I really, really liked Angels and Airwaves, and I was a front to back type of guy with the first three, and it was just it was so cool. The effects and things that I really like that, and
all the Blink side projects kind of kept us entertained for all of the aughts, right? Boxcar Racer had a good album. Like that was a good album.
Going into college, City and Color, Dallas Green. I was introduced to that pretty early on, and I was given a lot of that music right away, and I just listened to it to death and learned like every song because it's all on acoustic guitar.
Was that birth of folk like just visual money or audible money to your brain? Just like this is the best thing that's ever happened because of your acoustic roots and what you would tend to enjoy on some of these albums? Like when it softened, was college that much more fun for you, just of all these new records of just mostly acoustic instruments and stuff?
Well, it was so easy to not do my homework and just play and play and play and play. And that's all I really wanted to do. When I went to school, I was like, my plan is to find a band, make it famous, and drop out. And that was my plan. And that didn't really happen, but at least I got to play a whole bunch of different music and have some fun. So City in Color, Ray LaMontagne was also heavy acoustic guitar and like Americana, rootsy. Yeah, but was it folk? I don't know if it was folk, but along the same lines. It's the acoustic guitar driven and really earthy, dirty, hippie, crunchy stuff. Well, not hippie in like the Grateful Dead sense, but like the crunchy, the earth is good. Local Natives. I got into Dylan in early college. Did we go past early college, or are we
still there?
We're still there.
Well, there was a point where I'll sell this quick anecdote before. It pretty much was my friends shaming me till I started listening to the Hold Steady, and then it was only the Hold Steady for like all of college. But there was a point where I was in the car with my sister, and I was listening to the Motion City soundtrack, which was they're in my top 5 forever. That was definitely
Minnesota band.
Yeah, great. We should do a Minnesota episode, I swear. But she was like, she was in college and she was like pontificating about like your musical tastes are supposed to change over time, because I was probably listening to My Favorite Accident for like the 5th consecutive year. Just like, it's still one of my favorite songs of all time. But she's like, you can't just listen to the same stuff for the rest of your life. And I remember just distinctly thinking like, why don't you fucking watch me? Like, I'm never getting off this record. And she was right, of course. Flash forward a year later, and I'm listening to Kanye's Dark Twisted Fantasy, just like my eyes rolling into the back of my head, like, this is me, just like, whoa, like, what are these sounds? But I still go back to that Motion City record probably twice a year, I'd say. But she was right.
Wow.
She was right.
And I hit Ray LaMontagne like on the monthly. at least a song or two, just as a like a roundabout type way, like a tilt of the Earth's axis, just to get it kind of flipped back or I don't know, get it balanced. At least one or two songs from Gossip in the Grain or Till the Sun Turns Black.
For me, moving through high school into college, one of the biggest things was in senior year, 4 Year Strong dropped an album, and that like totally created a new genre for me, where I had just got into like melodic hardcore and post-hardcore, and I've always loved pop punk, so that kind of like bridged the gap between two things that I love that were completely separate. And then you had like Set Your Goals, Me vs. Hero, A Day to Remember, all of that came out around the same time. And that was just like everything for me. And then the Wonder Years were killing it at that time, and that was consistent with pop punk.
Damn, you got me into them. I'll forever be grateful for the upsides. That's such a good record.
And then getting into sophomore, I guess it would have been sophomore or junior year of college. Sophomore, I think. Dubstep was kind of like the introduction to electronic music. I regret that one immensely. It was kind of a quick thing, and it was like, oh shit, this is electronic music, went super hard. And then like after a month, I started like backing off and being like, all right, this is too much, clearly. And discovered Pretty Eyes, and just, I mean, I think they had like 30 hours of music out at that time. And I was closing down our coffee shop. We would close at like midnight. My friend Patrick, I would pretty much always close with him. People thought we were brothers all the time, and he was like down tempo, like dub DJ, and Pretty Eyes was one of the few things that he would tolerate. So pretty much you would just listen to that for like 8 hours closing, and like would be dancing like idiots, closing down the bar. And at that time I wasn't really listening to much other than Pretty Eyes, but I guess it was like Pretty Eyes, but also there were also some bands that were instrumental. Like I never liked Explosions in the Sky because I thought they were corny as shit. But I found If These Trees Could Talk and Caspian and This Will Destroy You, and it went into this like no lyrical thing for like a year straight, and then got really into Kesha. Like going into like the end of college. Like the last thing that I have is in I guess it would have been 2013. I mean, I was kind of listening to all the same stuff. The Wonder Years put out an album that I couldn't even recognize. They were my favorite band up until this point. I mean, I lived and breathed pop punk, like standard definition pop punk. Wonder Years, second album, Suburbia, all that shit. And they put out an album that I just like was like, what the is this? Like, and it kind of initiated this 2-year hiatus of all music. Like it totally like destroyed me for music. And that's when I discovered podcasts. And I did nothing but podcasts for like 2 years. And then that was only interrupted like kind of recently with female pop artists like Ariana Grande, Demi Lovato, Kesha still, Taylor Swift, Alicia Cara. And from there recently it just went to like the lo-fi hip hop. And that's pretty much where we are today for me. That sums it up. Everything since the beginning of time. My faces of music.
So your most recent decade has been your most exploratory.
I don't know,
or drifting from what your first years were. They were pretty close to the same tree, but then it seems like you've been really getting into some cool stuff.
I mean, the electronic, and there's a lot of old school hip hop back with the Pretty Eye stuff. Like really got into the Far Side heavily in J5 and stuff. Like The Roots and Naughty by Nature and shit like that. But yeah, I guess so. Like they all have elements of stuff that I've listened to. I don't think anything's dramatically different. But now it's like it's still more podcasts than anything. But I'm just enjoying music as a tool to heighten my mood rather than like listening to it and being like, this verse defines my life. It was written about me. Like I don't connect and I don't attach to music like I used to, which part of that is kind of like tragic for me because But I don't know, like, is not being angsty as an adult a bad thing?
Well, yeah, I was
Like,
gonna say,
I
it
feel much
doesn't-
happier than I was.
doesn't have to be angsty. I was gonna say, I mean, that to you, like, I feel like music defines you so much, Tom, that not having that, are you okay? Do you do you need a hug like right now?
I'm just obsessed with learning right now. So I'm super into podcasts, and like, you know, if I'm driving, so, yeah, I was listening to that at Cafe Lo-Fi mix recently and went back through a lot of Linkin Park and, you know, like it, but I just don't attach to it. And again, I think if I was, it would be because I was depressed or something. So I'm glad that I'm not, but I do wrestle with that. Like, I wish I would literally die for songs like I used to.
I talked about it on the pod before, but 2 albums that recently got me, like Hot Fuss would have gotten me, was Guppy in 2017 by Charlie Bliss, and then Post by Jeff Rosenstock this year. And to a certain extent, The Uncle, the Chief, and the Duke by Born Ruffians. Some of those songs were just like, I don't know, kapow, just like still like, you know, you don't find yourself driving to music, or maybe you're commuting to work more and more. And then I found myself driving to my cousin's wedding the other week, and I had never driven to an album in like almost a full 2 years maybe. And it was just like, oh man, this is a great feeling. It sucks that, you know, like I'll have to go on more walks or something to kind of get back into it.
Yeah.
Because you find yourself kind of drifting, like you said, maybe naturally, maybe not naturally, away from needing it as much, maybe. But
Right.
It's nice when it can suck you right back in, and you're just like, these are some tasty riffs. They are tasty indeed.
But you didn't feel like that same emotional connection, though, right? It was just like, oh, this is super good, but you're not like...
Oh, no. Yeah, dude.
Really?
Miss You by the Born Ruffians was like, knocked me on my ass for sure. I just thought it was a great tune.
I guess Julian...
See, when I say like the emotional connection, I had that for that Julian. Did you say Julian Baker?
I was gonna say, I guess
that
Julian
song
Baker's last album.
Everybody
Sprained Ankle.
Does. Sprained Ankle. Well, that whole fucking record. It's just like, how can it not? It just like grabs, it puts a weight on your heart, and it just brings you to the floor with it. It's just like, yeah, you're in it now. Like,
But
you
like,
don't
it's
really have a
only
choice.
depressing shit, though, right? It only makes you feel...
Oh no, Percolator, the first song on Guppy, the Charlie Bliss song, it's just like, it's definitely a let's fucking go vibe. It doesn't always, you know, Jeff Rosenstock, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. But I also don't think like, it's not like necessarily mood centric either. Like, I consider that place to be whenever you want to hear that song 37 times in a row, or you put it on repeat and you forget how long you've been listening to it. You know what I mean? Right. Just because you want to hear every note over and over and over and over and just like feel it. It doesn't have to be a sad thing necessarily.
Yeah, piggyback, Pat. Like, I have down here, like right about now, I'm really into the band called The True Loves, which is one of the Song of the Week choices from a couple weeks ago, a couple episodes ago. And they're an instrumental band, and they're like this jazzy, bluesy. I don't know. I have a very hard time describing what it is. Someone has described it, and it's probably accurate, but I don't know what it is. But like, it could go on, and it's been on several times, and it's not go to sleep, and it's not sad. It's just really, the baritone saxophone is like, ooh, there's this rumble that I feel, and
ooh, Barry sax.
Yeah, it's sexier than sexy. And
I have a question that maybe we can end the episode with, because we're hitting close to an hour. People say like there's those jokes on Twitter, like, or not, maybe not on Twitter, but after age 35, you kind of stop keeping up with music, or there's like a set amount of music that like your brain or your heart fills up with. Do you guys A, think that's true, B, think you're going to experience that? Or in the world of Spotify, is it just like there's no excuses not to just like get into new stuff? Or do you run out of time as an adult to really sit down on those car rides where you're not driving and sink into something? Or aging versus new music, and we can end that. How much do you see them changing from here on out, now that we've kind of gone over the trajectory of our tastes over time?
I mean, I think with radio, you're being served what is trendy at the time. And with digital distribution at this point, you can always find new music that doesn't go with whatever top 40 bullshit you're being fed. So like, you can find new music that reminds you of the older stuff, or you can find new music that's something that you would like more than top 40. So I think there's a greater chance of that number increasing. I think there is something to that. Like, I feel like I'm already hitting a little bit of that myself, but I think it'll be less of an issue since we, the consumers, are responsible for what we're consuming rather than just being shoveled shit down our throat. So I think it's a thing that will always be. I think it'll be less and maybe just push the year back further until we just don't have the energy to keep listening to and trying to get emotionally involved in new shit. It's like we're settling down with a partner, you know? That's kind of how I see it.
I think as a musician, I'll always be hungry for something inspiring or just some new way of playing. There's only so many chords on the neck, but there is a capo, and there's just all these different things you can do. So I think I'll always be hungry.
Is that so you can keep learning new stuff to play? Because that's how you connect to music?
Well, it's one avenue to connect, but I just think I'll always want to play something new. So I'll always want to listen to something new, and that's like a sinusoidal wave. It'll just go up and down. Like, I'll always want to play something new, so I'll ingest a whole bunch of new stuff and then play that for a long time. And then I'll go back up. I want to listen to some more new stuff and then maybe learn to play that. And like a library of songs. Maybe they're all basically the same and within a range of difficulty.
So are you saying that you'll always want more tunes?
More tunes! Mm-hmm. Always want more tunes.
I'll say this, perhaps a parting thought. As long as Leon Bridges is continuing to turn out tasty jams, then I'm open to new music.
As long as it's Leon Bridges.
Yeah, that's right. Exclusively. There is an age. I think when I hit 35, I think this is the rule that you have to pick one. And I think I'm going to go ahead and mail in my Leon Bridges vote right now and just
now, Pat, if you haven't
get ahead of that train.
If you haven't seen Leon Bridges' Tiny Desk concert,
I have, and it's lovely.
Okay.
He's a magical man.
He is a magical man.
So let's give our songs of the week, and then Zach, you need to go to bed. Pat and I are off to record an episode of Pod Carnage. Very excited about that. And yeah, so let's give a song of the week.
John.
Song of the week for me is Tedeschi Trucks Band, Anyhow.
How do you spell that?
Tedeschi Trucks Band. I would prefer that our listeners listen to the Tiny Desk concert version of that song, because I'm on a Tiny Desk concert kick right about now, and it's just really phenomenal what kind of sound they can get out of such a trimmed down musical set with their limited space and instruments, and everything's pretty acoustic except for the parts that aren't.
Dope. I'm gonna have to cheat this week. There's a Turnover album that I've been listening to a little bit since I saw them with The Story So Far. I mean, I'll listen to it once, so I haven't found like the song I would recommend. So can I just say that I'll put the song once I come to a decision in the show notes, but I don't have one for you now?
Yes, because I'm going to do a similar thing. I haven't watched the new Julian Baker stuff she's doing with Phoebe, I forget her last name.
Smelly Cat?
Bridgers, and she's got a new ensemble going where they did a Tiny Desk concert recently, and I haven't watched it, but go watch it, and we'll watch it together and tweet at us. I'm excited for her, anything really. Her and Maggie Rogers. I am thankful for this podcast, if nothing else, is that Tom got me into Maggie Rogers and Julian Baker, whether indirectly or directly. So
nice.
New stuff from them as of late, and let's go enjoy it together.
Yay!
Awesome. So yeah, that's how we got from there to here, and hopefully our musical.
I feel like we could have done another hour easy, but
oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we could totally. Well, I guess we can't do a part 2, but yeah, there's a lot there.
I kind of want to redo our Desert Island episode and explain how we got from album to album or something, because now I'm like,
well, I would love to, because I didn't understand the premise of that eepisode when we did it.
Yeah, we can do another now that we have Zach, where basically you only have 5 records to listen to for the rest of your life when you're on this island.
I made some bad choices the first time, so yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Absolutely.
Well, if I have my bug out bag, we can probably make a couple different instruments and then make our own album, so we wouldn't have to listen to the same stuff. We just,
What's that Grandma's Boy quote? You're so good, you broke the game. we've cracked the case.
All right, guys. I love you.
Love you too.
Love you.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening to episode 102. Show notes for this episode can be found at reminiscentpodcast.com/episode/102. You can buy brand new merchandise at reminiscentpodcast.com/shop. Follow us on Twitter at _reminiscentfm and tell us what your first favorite song was. Talk to you guys next week. Hope you had a happy Thanksgiving. Bye.